Hi everyone, I'm Raj and I'm back with another video. This is the second video of the playlist Python Essentials Course 2024. You can find the entire playlist in the playlist section of my channel. I'll put the link of that playlist in the description box as well as you can find the link of the first video, which is the lesson 0, which I've already posted in my channel in the I button on top. Well, in the video thumbnail, you will find the lesson number as well as the topic on which I'm going to make the video. Okay, so before watching the video, you can follow the lesson number and you can follow the videos, and I request you to follow the videos in a sequence manner so that you do not mess up. In this video, I'm going to talk about the basics of programming. So let's get started with today's video. All right, the first thing that we have to understand is what is programming. So what is programming? Well, programming is the process of writing code to instruct a computer on how to perform actions. So basically, computer is a dumb box. It doesn't understand anything unless you instruct the computer to do some work. So you have to tell the computer that, hey, do this for me, do that for me. Then only the computer will accomplish that task that you are giving to the computer. So the process in which we instruct the computer is known as programming. Okay, now let us understand what is a syntax. So what is a syntax? Well, syntax is the way you write the instructions. So the process of writing instructions is known as programming, and the way you write those instructions is known as syntax. So different programming languages have different way of writing syntax. Like for example, in Python, let's talk about Python. Python is the programming language that we are going to learn in this entire series. So in Python, when we write code, we generally do not include semicolon. But in other programming languages like C, we include semicolon at the end. So in order to write a line of instruction, we have to include a semicolon and end that line in C. But on the same time, Python doesn't require to write semicolon at the end. So the way you write the instructions is known as syntax. I hope you are understanding what is syntax. The syntax in computer programming means the rules that control the structure of the symbols, punctuation, and words of a programming language. So I hope you understood what is syntax. Now let us move on. Let us understand what are the types of programming languages available. So in market, there are two types of programming language available. The first one is low-level programming language and the other one is high-level programming language. So what is a low-level programming language? So low-level programming language is kind of, you can say, it's kind of the native language of computer. Okay, so programming language, low-level programming language is kind of the native language of the computer, and it's very difficult for us, we humans, to understand low-level programming languages. It doesn't mean that we don't understand low-level programming language. We understand it, but it's difficult to understand, right? Like for example, my mother's tongue, my native language is Bengali. That doesn't mean that I don't understand English, I don't understand Hindi. Well, it's understandable by me. I can understand English, I can understand Hindi, but it's difficult to interact in that language, right? So I feel very comfortable to talk in Bengali rather speaking in English or Hindi, right? So basically that's a low-level programming language. So the language that is directly understood by the computer is known as a low-level programming language. But on the other hand, high-level programming language are the languages that are easily understood by us. So you can say high-level programming language is our native language. The way we talk, the way we give instructions is known as a high-level programming language. The high-level programming language is easier to understand by we humans. Okay, now let's talk about a little bit about the low-level programming language. So low-level programming language is also divided into two categories. The first one is machine language and the other one is an assembly language. So what is a machine language? As I told you, that low-level programming language is the native language of the computer. Machine language is actually the native language of the computer. It's also called as a binary language. So computer understands only two things. As you all might be knowing, if you are already familiar with computer science, you all might be knowing that computer understands only two things, 0 and 1. Actually, you know what? It doesn't even understand 0 and 1. Computer only works when electric current passes through its circuitry. So computer has a circuit inside it, right? Whenever you pass electric current through the circuit, it works. It kind of works, right? So that electric current that you're passing through the computer circuit can have low voltage as well as high voltage. So whenever the current is not passing, it's low voltage and it is designated by 0. And when the current is passing, it's designated by 1, or it's also called as high voltage, right? So in order for us to understand, we have given the notations 0 and 1 to the electric current that is passed through the computer circuitry. So whenever electric current is passing, when it's denoted by 1, and when it is not passing, it is denoted by 0. So that's what a machine language or binary language means. So machine language is also called as a binary language, and that's exactly the core native language of the computer. Okay. The other language that we are talking about is assembly language. So since machine language was very difficult to understand by us humans, so it was very difficult for us to code in machine language. It needed a lot of expertise in the field of programming to actually write code in binary language, right? So that's where some people discovered that we should do something for this. So basically they came up with a language known as the assembly language. Now assembly language was a bit easier for us to understand. We used to write code in assembly language and it was a bit easier. I'm not telling it's easy. It was a bit easier to write code in assembly language because we had some instructions that was understandable by us. Like for example, add, subtract. These were the codes that we used to write in assembly language, right? So assembly language was a kind of a bit easier to understand by us, right? But the problem was assembly language was not understandable by computers. We had to come up with a solution. What was the solution? An assembler. So assembly language, the code that we write in assembly language was called as the assembly code. Okay, and we had a translator in middle. So assembly code is translated to machine code by the help of an assembler. Now let us talk about the types of high-level language. What are the types of high-level language? There are basically two types of high-level language: the compiled language and the interpreted language. So what is a high-level language? As I already told you, as I already discussed just now, that high-level language is easier for us to understand. We can directly understand high-level language. It's almost written in the form of English language. The way we write code in write in English, the same way we write codes in high-level programming language. But there were two types of high-level programming language. The one is the compiled language, the other one is the interpreted language. Now let us understand about compiled language and interpreted language. What is a compiled language and what is an interpreted language? Well, it's almost like this assembly language. It's not similar to assembly language, but it's almost like its functioning is almost like the assembly language. Like assembly language uses an assembler to convert assembly code to machine code. Okay, similarly, compiled language uses a compiler to convert source code to machine code. So the code that we write in compiled language is called as a source code. So basically, the code that we write in high-level programming language is known as source code. So when we convert that source code to a machine code, we need a translator in the middle. And that translator is called as the compiler when we are talking about compiled language. But on the other hand, when we are talking about interpreted language, the translator that acts in the middle is called as an interpreter. Now there is a major difference between compiled language and interpreted language. What is the difference? Compiled language compiles the entire program and then runs it. Okay, so when we are running a compiled language, first the entire program is read by the compiler, it's translated into machine code, and then we run the program. But interpreted language is executed line by line. So while we are running an interpreted language reads the program. Whatever program we write, it reads the program line by line and starts executing it. So we go from top to bottom. It's a top-down approach in interpreted language. So we go from top to bottom by reading individual lines, right? So whenever the interpreter detects a mistake in the code, detects an error, it immediately stops working. It doesn't run the program anymore. So it will throw you an error as soon as you write a wrong code. So that's where the difference between compiled language and interpreted language lies. Now let us talk a bit about the Python language that we are going to learn in this entire series. So high-level programming languages, there are different types of high-level programming languages, like for example Java, C, C++, Python, Perl, Ruby, then JavaScript. There are different kinds of high-level programming languages available in the market. Nowadays there are more that are coming. There are upcoming languages. Like for example, I just heard about a language called as Mojo. So that is also high-level programming language. But we are going to learn Python in this entire series. Okay. So what is Python? Let us understand a bit about Python. So Python is a dynamically typed object-oriented programming language. Okay. Dynamically typed and object-oriented programming language is a bit heavy to understand right now. You won't understand this, but just keep this in mind that that Python is a dynamically typed object-oriented programming language. I want you to keep these two keywords in your mind: dynamically typed and object-oriented programming language. We will discuss this later on in the course. So if I tell you right now, you won't understand. But let me specify what is a dynamically typed programming language. It's basically a type of programming language in which we do not specify the data type while writing the code. So what is data type? You won't understand. So later on, when we will understand data type, we will understand what is a dynamically typed programming language. And later on, when we will learn about the OOPS concept, which is object-oriented programming language concept, we will also understand about object-oriented programming language later on. Okay. So right now, I want you to keep these two keywords in your mind. Okay. It was created in the year 1991 by Guido van Rossum. It's pronounced as Guido van Rossum, not Guido van Rossum. Okay, so Guido van Rossum was a person behind Python. He actually invented Python in the year 1991. And since then, there had been a major development in the Python. And nowadays, in this market, in this 2024, Python is one of the most used languages in the field of AI and machine learning. So that's the reason why we are learning Python. It's very, very important language, and it's also used in cybersecurity. So if you're wanting to go for cybersecurity as your future career, then you need to learn Python, right? So Python is a very renowned language in this field. Okay, so the story behind Python, behind the invention of the Python was very interesting. Guido van Rossum actually named it Python after the TV show, the British TV show known as Monty Python's Flying Circus. So this was the program which Guido van Rossum used to watch a lot. And after that, he thought that why shouldn't I give the name Python? Let's give the name Python. So after that, he named the programming language as Python. So that was basically the history of Python. That's the story of Python. Now, since then, Python, the first version of Python was Python 2. Then now we are using Python 3. So there has been a major development of Python in the upcoming, in the past few years, right? And upcoming years, the Python is going to be much more versatile. So we need to learn Python. Okay. Now, why Python? Why should you learn Python? Why shouldn't you learn other programming languages? Well, one simple answer to it is it's user-friendly and it's easy to write. It's one of the most easiest languages to learn. You know, you will hardly need 1 or 2 weeks to learn Python actually. So Python is so easy to understand and so easy to grasp that you can understand it very easily. That is one of the reasons why we should code in Python. One more important thing that I want to tell you, that Python is an interpreted programming language. Okay, so I already talked about interpreted and compiled programming language just now. So Python is an interpreted programming language. So Python makes use of interpreter in order to convert the source code to machine code. Okay, and it's a very user-friendly programming language, and making it a choice for all the beginners. So if you are a beginner in the field of programming, you don't know anything about programming, make your programming career by learning Python. Python, you can be your first programming language because it's very easy to understand, right? And that's all about this particular lesson. I hope you understood something, you got to learn some valuable information from this lesson. Thanks a lot for watching. If you made it till here, I'll meet you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.